Hello and welcome to Schmidy's Guide to E5 Hell Raised in Secret World Legends. We're going to be doing this from the perspective of the tank, but we will be talking about what you'll need to do in every role, regardless of the role. I'm going to be letting you know what you need to do, so this should be useful for everybody if you want to learn how to run this dungeon effectively. And hopefully we do not die on the trauma driver 12 times. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to swap over to our tanking build. You can see that I've used my anima allocation to make it so that I have approximately the amount of survivability that you should have as an E5 tank. You're going to have about 13,000 hit points and about 13,000 protection. And then we've got weapons that are actually going to give us the appropriate amount of damage output as well. I'm going to miss Alacrity because I don't have that on either of my purple weapons, and being able to run fast as the tank is a big deal, but we've got Fast and Furious to make up for it, and we've got a good group here, so we should be able to run through. And of course, as always, the people who have way too much damage output are... we need to swap Slim. Are going to be 100% healing. So obviously Rose has already done that, and the other ones don't have to because they actually have like legitimate. I think this is E6 gear barely. This is the top end of E5 gear, and hopefully Slim has gone healing. Slim. I'm gonna finish, I'm gonna beat up these ads here while we wait. Alright, so we're going to hop over. I don't know if Slim understands that you can inspect people to see where they have their anima allocation. But if not, somebody is probably telling him right now in the chat. Alright, so the first thing we have here is, I think it's the Antimony Minstrix. So, her big thing is that obviously these purple circles go around and they kill you if you step in them. So you're going to have to be running around this little pillar here. And she uses Macro Shock a lot. As the tank, you should be impairing that. I like to impair the first one with a gadget, so that way I will still be able to generate large amounts of hate. And the second one we can use Eruption on. You can also always have DPS helping with this. They do technically get a little bit of a boost from their ring slot if they are the ones who impair that, but it's not going to be a big difference. So just keep on running around in circles here, and we'll use our cooldown there because it looked like we were going to take a bunch of damage. We'll use Eruption up. We gotta get it off because we were a little slow there, but fortunately nobody died. Rose probably just screamed at me in the chat, but I can't hear it. Woo! And I was hoping that we would have a cleanse there, but I think that Lucia had just used it. So that's the first boss. And yeah, this dungeon can be kind of silly because the innervation stuff doesn't go away. That purple stuff doesn't go away just because you win. So unlike other dungeons where the environmental effects sort of just turn off when the boss dies, in this one you get to wait. So there is our first set there. And this will be the one where you're going to be doing sort of a... It's the good test because it's just a straight DPS run. Like, you run down there, grab the Rakshasa, bring him back up here, point him away from the group as the tank because he cleaves, and everybody just gets to beat on him. And so this is a really good way to see how well you're doing for DPS wise. So a lot of times he'll start with Caustic Outpouring. We're just going to run away from that and hide behind this rock. See if we can log our combat here. And I like to hide behind this rock because if he doesn't use that donut, he's going to run all the way over to us before he tries to use Caustic Outpouring. And that will make a big difference because he won't be using it way further back than makes sense. He'll be using it right about here, and that's where the DPS are expecting it. If you're just sort of standing out here in the open like this, in this area, when he's walking up and he hasn't just already used it, he can use it really far back and that'll panic all the DPS and everybody will die. So try not to have that happen. And then obviously we are just hitting him here. It's just literally we're keeping him in the same place and I'm face tanking him until we win. And that should be any moment now. Cool. There we go. So we're going to see how we did there. Alright. So that we don't give that to everybody, we're just going to see how we're doing. So you're going to want to be doing around that amount of damage. Somewhere between like 16 to 20,000 DPS on the Corroder to be able to beat this dungeon, because the DPS checks in this dungeon are absolutely insane. They are well above, like super far above where they ought to be. Because everybody here is you're expecting to be doing about 5 to 6,000 DPS as an E5 DPS. Everybody here obviously just a smidgen above that, and we are still going to have troubles on the Tyrant. And on top of that, of course, I am doing nearly twice as much damage as a tank should be doing at this level because I have so much critical rating and critical power. So, like, I'm adding an extra 1,000 DPS on top of that. So keep that in mind. You have to have a lot of DPS to do well here. Alright, so for the Hardwired Flesh tank, he cleaves. Point him away from your group. And sometimes he will set these grates on fire, and you'll have to move him around, so make sure you don't point him towards your group while you do that. And on top of that, if you do have to choose between standing on the coals and standing on a flaming platform, stand on the coals. The coals do less damage. And I like to try to save my cooldown for when I can for the transitions there, because that's when the healer is going to have to be healing everybody, so they're not healing the tank as much, and they're going to be the most distracted, so it'll be easier for them to lose target. So we're going to impair that. We're going to move over here. I do like to try to move back to center whenever I can, because that gives us the most options, and we're the closest on average to any given safe platform. But sometimes he doesn't let you do that. So here, for example, we're going to run back over to the center, and everybody's going to follow, because that way, no matter which platforms light on fire, we will be able to get to the ones that aren't very quickly. So here's one. And obviously just stop Searing Brand with an Impair each time. There are also other ways of getting around Searing Brand. You can just dodge out of the way of it. We may get a chance to do that here. Oh, nope, somebody impaired it for us. Yeah, your DPS can impair it if you're waiting. That's probably going to be the last Searing Brand that we see. So we'll try to dodge out of the way of it just to show that on the next one. Because the next boss also has Searing Brand. Cool, and that's the Trauma Driver. And that's the Hardwired Flesh tank, sorry. The next one is the Trauma Driver. And this guy, the Trauma Driver, is where we really start getting into the heavy DPS checks. You'll need about 15 to 16,000, probably 16,000 on the Corroder to reasonably be able to finish this about 50% of the time with enough DPS. So you might have to run it 2 or 3 times before you get a little bit lucky, but it should be close as every time as long as you don't die. And he's got a couple of really nasty things here. This is really like the first place where if you're just not going to be able to win, or if your group doesn't know how the mechanics work, they're not going to be able to finish the dungeon. So you'll need to know when to run in here. As the tank, I like to run in right when the purple is on its way back towards us, and it'll just be right past the trauma driver, so right as it gets past him. On top of that, the tank and some of the other players are going to want a compact catastrophe shelter. What that does, of course, is put a little blue circle on the ground that gives everybody in that circle extra protection rating. So right about now is when I'm going to run in. And you'll need that for a skill he uses called Molten Metal. It's really the only reasonable way to not die to it, and you'll see everybody's got the blue circles right now. There's a Searing Brand that just got impaired for me. I didn't have to do anything against that. And we're just going to walk him backwards here. And he'll occasionally cast a Strip Mine. It just randomly targets somebody. Everybody wants to stand in those blue circles, and then the healer puts something out on there. Oh, and again, somebody impaired that for me. And I like to go right around here next to this pillar. And what this will do is it will allow us to have a really easy transition when that fire gets close and we've got to move to the other side, because that's going to come, that purple stuff's going to start coming back towards us here. So obviously for Searing Brand you can just use your cooldown, but as you saw there, you can just dodge out of the way at the end of it, and you will also get out of it. So there's a lot of things you can do with Searing Brand, right? You have your cooldown, you can impair it, you can just dodge out of the way at the very end, and I showed you the timing right there, so if you want to look at it a couple times to see where we need to be, that's where it is. And that's all you need to do. Then just make sure that you got your catastrophe shelters and keep going. Now at higher levels, when he uses Molten Metal, it does so much damage that it's just going to kill the DPS anyway, even if they're inside that shelter. So what's going to have to happen is the tank has to bring the shelter, and everybody else has to bring an Osmium Configuration. And I'm not even going to bother here, he's going to die before that happens. We'll dodge back just in case. And there we go. And so there's the other thing I was referring to here is the Osmium Configuration. Everybody else will have to bring that and also stand inside the catastrophe shelter, because the tank will survive with just the catastrophe shelter and his survivability. Everybody else is going to have to bring both of those and possibly also some extra HP, possibly slotting some extra anima allocation or just using a anima potion. And there is a rare that can sometimes spawn over here. It's an Oni that will drop a gadget for everybody in the group if you kill him. Most of the gadgets aren't super great, but there's a couple of them that are pretty nice. Obviously, I've got quite a few. Some of them are rather inexpensive, but you get a lot of those from the E5 Plus dungeons. You can get mythics and legendaries once you get to that point. So, here we have Recursion. So she has changed quite a bit from the E4 version. Now, when she changes phases for Infernal Criticality and goes to the center, the dogs still come from the Rakshasa, still come from the sides, and if they touch her, they explode. But she also causes life burn to occur at that point in time, and she will start launching little areas on the ground that are yellow, and if any of the Rakshasa or her are in it, they gain a reflect shield that kills you if you shoot them. However, you can still use anything that will impair. Anything that impairs does not kill you if you hit them when they have the shield up. If the Rakshasa get to the middle, you can use impairs when they start Bio Meltdown to launch them into the air or knock them back or whatever. It will actually just vanish them. No matter how much HP they have, getting interrupted out of that destroys them. And finally, her attacks chain, which means that we are going to want to stay away from our group, and our group is going to want to stay away from us. So you definitely need a cleanse here as the healer as well for that life burn that I was talking about. In fact, this entire dungeon needs cleanses. On the last fight I probably should have mentioned, sorry. You may want 2 cleanses, because every time he uses Molten Metal, everybody in the group gains stacks of life burn, and he uses that more than once every 20 seconds. So you'll see everybody moves in for Arcane Halo, then moves away from me again, so that the chain from her basic attack doesn't kill them. So she'll use Infernal Criticality, run to the edges. You want to do that because she'll throw, that shield on somebody, and having it really far on the edge makes it so that, you're less likely to have Rakshasa go through it. and even if you do, you've got all this space right here to still deal with them. Okay, it's gone, so we want to stay away from the center for the moment. Dubs is a little close, but yeah, we're okay. And then once the shield is there, however, you can feel free to run into the center for a little while. That'll be safe. Oh, we'll run back in. Okay, somebody caught that, but I was just going to dive in and use my gadget. But this works nicely. And everybody stays away from me. And you can turn her. You can turn Recursion. In fact, we will be doing that here in the next phase. And as long as you are telegraphing that as the tank, you will be fine. And obviously you saw that we got life burn there, and our healer just cleansed it. That happens every time that she runs to the center with Infernal Criticality now. Okay, I'm going to stay away from the center because she's going to cast one. Oop, Dubs was a little close, but we got lucky. It got sent into a spot where there's not really a lot of Rakshasa going to spawn in that area until after it's gone. And again, we're going to sort of creep around. I would like to stay right around to this edge right here. You can see that little dais until she gets another one out. Okay, and if it's really close to her, like it is this time, that well, you want to position yourself between her and the well because she'll run away from you. So when she runs away, you want her to stay away from that well. So here we're going to actually move around a little bit, and you'll see that our healer is staying away from us because he realizes what's happening. I'm going to try to make her stay towards the center this time instead of making her go to the outside, because on the last one, she keeps attacking you. She will keep attacking the tank, even though the dogs are also coming, and that's going to happen right here. So when she casts that, the tank needs to back off, because she'll use Anima Eruption. It is always on the tank, and if you're attacking her, you'll be too close. So there it is, right? It casts on me, of course. Wings is actually quite useful here to get rid of the ads, because if they touch her, everybody explodes. And our AoE impairs are also really nice to be able to deal with that. And that's a really pretty, really clean Recursion there. That's what you want to see. Cleanses at the beginning of Infernal Criticality, leaving the animal wells mostly in nice places that make it so that they're not right in the center, which makes it really hard. Staying away from the tank, seeing the tank's telegraphs and responding to them. There's a lot going on in this fight. It's very intricate, and it'll take some time to really learn how to do it, but it's better if you know how to do it, hence the guides. Alright, so in E5 Plus, you've probably seen this plenty of times already, but it's just not worth churning through the 200, 300,000 hit points that each of these trash mobs has, unless you're Rose. I think she actually just got slammed by a cleave as she was running past. So if one person runs up and acts as the sacrificial lamb here, everybody else gets up for free. So we all die. Alright, and we have finally reached the most completely insane, overclocked, impossible to do at the appropriate gear level boss in the game. Hello, Machine Tyrant. So this guy has quite a bit going on. First of all, he cleaves. Second of all, he's got that reflect shield on him, but to get it off of him, you have to walk him through these wells as the tank, so you have to be running around through that. On top of that, there will be some red reticles that spawn and start chasing people. So you got to keep the DPS have to stay away from those red reticles. They have to stay away from this well, which will hurt you if you are standing in it. They have to stay away from the cleave. He's got to demolish a point-blank AoE, but you can just impair that, which is a new and nice addition to this game. And then once in a while, he will go to the center and get the shield for free, as well as sending even more circles everywhere. So the problem with this is that, as you can see, he has 2.8 million hit points, and we will have a 3-minute Enrage Timer, which is completely ridiculous. That's not even like close to reasonable, because you would need to have everybody doing 5,000 to 6,000 DPS in the group. and have no downtime, right? So this shield that he has on right now, that's downtime because you can't attack him during it. When he runs to the center and gets the shield and just surrounds himself with circles, that's downtime. When he gets the shield back and has to walk all the way back through the well before you can attack him again, that's downtime. So the 3-minute Enrage Timer with that much HP is actually literally impossible. So as you can see here, we have our healer going DPS, and 2 people are taking cleanses, and that's what's going to happen. And I, as the tank, am going to do the only thing that you can do here to win at appropriate gear levels, which is sustain tank. I keep myself alive without a healer because it is impossible to finish this dungeon with only 3 DPS if you're properly geared, even if those DPS are great and know what they're doing. So, with that out of the way, let's begin. We're going to swap over to Immutable. We're going to add Pain Suppression. We're going to need the passive for Pain Suppression. And we're going to keep everything else, because honestly, Immutable doesn't really give us a great sustain passive. So I would rather have the extra HP from Percussive Maintenance, the extra speed from Fast and Furious, and the extra buffs that you occasionally get from Resonance Cascade. So make sure that your group is ready here, because you need a lot going on. If you are going to have a single healer, that healer needs to bring 2 cleanses, because again, he sends life burn out about every 14 to 15 seconds, so you will not be able to deal with that with only 1 cleanse, unless that's on your elite and you have a really good elite cooldown signet. And I think we're about ready. Making sure here. Okay, cool, yeah, everybody's ready. So, oftentimes, as the tank here, I'm not going to attack him until he walks through this well. Somebody's going to usually impair that for me. And here we go, we're just going to start alternating cooldowns. And, not going to go through how to do this a lot, because honestly it's kind of silly that it needs to be done at all. But it does work, and you do need to do it here. As unfortunate as that is. Alright, so if you have melee DPS, you're going to need to move, or just in general, you're going to want to move the Machine Tyrant a little bit backwards. Can I get him here in time? I don't think I can. Yeah, I just killed Slim. We'll see if we have enough DPS to finish this. Probably not. That's one of the things with rifle here, is that you just do that, so we're probably just going to wipe it. So yeah, this fight is hard. Expect to wipe on it. Expect to wipe on it a lot, honestly, but that's okay. Really, the question is going to be whether or not you have the DPS. The way you'll be able to tell is you want him to be at about 50% hit points by the time he goes to the center the first time. If you can get him a little below 50%, that's great. You want him to be at even sometimes a little bit above, will still fall within like the realm of variance. But yeah, it's just, this fight is hard. As you can see, I just barely missed the timer. He'll get a little, he has the buff right now, which is the Reflect Shield. He'll get a little red buff that looks exactly the same as this, called Anima Depletion, and it ticks down. It shows me how long he has. That's how I'm telling how much time I have before we go through the well. Honestly, wiping is okay here, because there's so much to explain about this ridiculous fight. So, we're running in. Our 2 DPS over here are just alternating cooldowns so that we don't die. 2 life burn. There it is. And here we go. So we are going to telegraph our movements because he cleaves. And you'll see that he's got 5 seconds left on Anima Depletion, which is about the perfect time to run in there. I know it looked like I was about to die, but it's totally fine, guys. I'll be great. I don't know what Dubs just did. Oh, everybody's dead. And sometimes we mess up on life burn or whatever that was. I don't even know yet. I think it was a life burn thing. Which, yeah, this fight is totally insanely ridiculous, and even if you know what you're doing and have a bunch of people in your group who know what they're doing and are doing extra DPS, you'll find that you'll be able to see the Enrage Timer. I'll point it out here next time as well. You'll be able to see that we just barely finish in time, even though we're doing a little bit more damage than the dungeon really expects out of you. And we have 4 people running DPS instead of just 3. So there's our Enrage Timer, right? 2 minutes and 48 seconds. There's Anima Depletion. Okay, so we're going to walk around now because we'll need to. Okay, he's at 10 seconds. We're going to walk him back a little bit. We can take 1 hit here from full health before we need to pop anything, so we'll do that. And he's running to the center. You'll notice he's a little bit above the area we want, right? A little bit above 50% HP. So we're going to be really tight on this one, for sure. Alright, fortunately he telegraphs his swings so we can pretty easily get around that. We're going to go this way. And we're just going to keep walking him around. And when he does go to the center, you can greet him a little bit. Obviously we got Fast and Furious giving us a little bit extra run speed there. And now we're just looking for the well because we want to get there and probably use Immutable while we can before he starts walking back. So we're going to get over here. We're going to stand in the well, which hurts us a little bit. And we're going to stand over here. Alright, so that was a little nuts. Oh, I think Dubs got cornered accidentally. I cornered him, probably. Alright, he's got 7 seconds, so we're just going to dash over here to make sure we get there in time. And we are almost, like, we need to kill him right now sort of deal. Like, to the point where I'm actually just going to greed the center for the moment. Whoop, and just pray because we're all dead anyway if we don't. There we go. And we beat him. The Enrage Timer had started by the time they finished him off. But we won, and that is about right, honestly. I don't know why this fight is so insanely overtuned, but it is, and that's how you deal with it. That's the only way to deal with it right now, even with 3 DPS, who, let's see how we did on that. Who did in 2 minutes and 56 seconds, because I died. Yeah, we have 3 people who did 6,000 on a normal fight, can now only do about 5,000 to 4,000 in this fight because of the downtime. And then we have our healer helping out with a little bit extra, right? 3,000 damage, just a little tad under these guys. So he's actually doing approximately the correct level of DPS for the dungeons, because he'd be doing about 5,000 DPS with this, whereas these guys were doing 6,000. And that is really the dungeon. This thing is just absolutely crazy. So I hope this helps you to get through it, even though this dungeon is way overtuned, particularly this fight. And we'll be running through the Ankh next. I hope to see you there.